Same questions too, right?
Yeah, stick with the same questions. That's perfect.
Okay. Then we'll just do the same one this time. Oh, hi, I'm Sophia DeMasi, and I'm part of the cast of Tarzan.
Hi, I'm Calderon, and I'm also part of the cast of Tarzan.
And I'm Tom Della Sala, and I'm about as seasoned a veteran of SLOC as we have in the area, which we'll get to.
What was your first production at SLOC?
Okay, this is a two-part answer.
Okay.
The first part is my introduction to SLOC. 1972, I was in my second year teaching in Schenectady School. That was at Central Park. A science teacher down the hall named Howard Moyer had been cast as the lead in Jacques Brel's Alive and Well Living in Paris at SLOC. I moved from Pittsburgh here. I never heard of SLOC, but Howard was in it, so I went to see the show. And he was wonderful, and I got hooked. And if you go through the history of this company, they redid Jacques Brel about 20 years later, and Howard played the lead again.
Oh my goodness.
Oh.
He was like gray, right?
Oh, he had a voice that you can't capture the voice. It was magnificent. So anyway, so that was my introduction to SLOC, seeing Howard on stage, meeting a few people. The following year, I went to Linton High School, which is now Schenectady High, which, by the way, has a dance studio where you get credit for phys ed. At Schenectady High School, you can get phys ed credit dancing. Anyway, so I went to Linton High School, and my first year there, I became part of the theater program. Another guy and I, we've been the co-directors of the theater company in the high school. So he then auditioned for shows at SLOC. So I was supporting him, so I would come, and I got kind of roped into doing things. I would show up for set building. I would show up for painting a flat. And I got involved in the company, and then I started dating a woman who became one of the stars of SLOC for a few years, and she and Ron were in shows together. So I was there every night between my girlfriend and my best friend. Both I was here. So the show there, Once Upon a Mattress.
Oh, okay, yeah, I've heard of that.
She played Winifred. He played the wizard, and I was at every. And then in those days, we didn't have a company photographer like you guys have now. Like you have Andrew now doing it, right? But back then we didn't have anybody, and I was messing around with photography, so I became the unofficial company photographer.
Oh, okay, fine.
And so I would just take pictures and sell them to the cast. I would say, quarter a piece. I'll take them. And so they would go through my proofs, and they would order pictures. And so other shows that I wasn't working on because Ron and Patty weren't in them, they would say, "You want to come and take pictures of us?" And so I became an unofficial photographer for a few years. I'm probably I could keep wandering here, but the first show I directed here was The Apple Tree back in 1977. It's not a great show, but it's got a great first act. It's a 3-part show about about men and women and the conflict. And the first third of the show, it's called The Diary of Adam and Eve. It's based on a Mark Twain short story. It is absolutely brilliant. It's why we wanted to direct the show. Ron and I did it together. We just loved, the other 2 parts are okay. The Lady and the Tiger was one of them, and I forget the third one. But I made some good friends during that show directing that. And then my acting, I'll give you all my different parts. My first acting role in Schenectady, in SLOC, was in Carnival, a show that not often done, not Carousel, Carnival. They were both done by SLOC in the same 2-year period, and people confuse them all the time. But my role in Carnival, I was a strong man, which meant I spent most of the show on stage, upstage, working out with weights. Training with weights. I was working my butt off with weights. And
like stage weights or like real weights?
Oh, no. Okay, styrofoam. Which set up, and literally, I'm on stage probably 90% of the show.
Yeah.
I'm just in the background. I had like 2 lines, but I'm always on stage. Right before the finale, there were a couple kids in the show, and one of the 10-year-olds runs across, picks up my barbell with one hand and runs off the stage.
Oh my gosh.
Which brought the house down.
Yeah.
It was this great sight gag. So I did this for 2 hours to get this kid to get this big laugh. which I always love that moment.
Was that supposed to happen? Was
No,
that
yeah,
a show?
oh yeah,
okay,
that was
okay.
in the script.
Yeah.
That was the sight gag. That's why I had to be on stage the whole show, because the audience got used to me straining with these weights. Oh God, this is so hard. And the kid grabbed it and ran off. One other piece from that show, a little anecdote. I had to wear a Tarzan outfit, strongman outfit, the shorts and tunic, the whole bit. And so they said to me, as we were getting close to Tech Week, they said, we're going to have to work on your body makeup. I said, okay, my legs and my hand, my arms would all be exposed. I said, okay, so I went to the woman doing the makeup was a wonderful woman named Esther Rorick. She's no longer with us, but she's a big makeup person here. And she said, Mickey, let's work on your body makeup, what we got for you. Take off your pants so I can see what your legs look like. And so I did, and she looked at my legs, and I'm an Italian guy with a lot of hair, and she looked and she said, we're good, and she put the makeup away. That was the end of my body makeup. I didn't need it. The lights were not going to reflect off my hair. Which, one of my funnier backstage stories is SLOC.
Yeah.
Okay, a long answer there, but I got a lot of stuff covered.
What are your favorite memories from that production?
Well, which one?
All of them.
Let's, that group. I would say, Once Upon a Mattress, because I got to spend so much time with the two people that were critical in my life at the time. And from 73 until 83, I was active in a lot of different roles here at the company. And then I got married and had kids, and I kind of took time off, because Melissa mentioned, you're trying to make a marriage work and have raising kids. You don't have nearly as much time as you used to have to do this stuff. So I took a break there. But Once Upon a Mattress really has some great memories. And seeing Ron as a wizard, he worked out some of these gags where he pulled a thing out of his mouth that went for like 5 minutes. I have no idea how he did it. He never told me the trick to making that work. It was very entertaining. But he was a talent. And I'll tell you a story about him if we get to that in here. Good story about him.
What was your favorite role to play? Not on stage, but director.
Okay, well, it's interesting. I like directing, but my favorite role, which it's only in the last 10, 12 years I've been involved with this, is having directors say to me, you want to be the dramaturge for my show? And I did it with Guys and Dolls, and I did it with Hair. And my goodness, when they asked me to do it for Hair, I directed Hair in 1980 on the Proctor stage, when Proctor was coming out of bankruptcy. We were like the first production on the stage again. Back in the 70s, Proctor became a $1 movie house. $1 for a double feature. That's what Proctor's was. And there was a group of people who were going to buy it and tear down Proctor's and do some development. This is real. This is history of Schenectady. In 1979, a group of people, which included me because I was active with the Linton High School theater thing, and we directed 30 shows in 10 years, so I did a lot of directing. And they invited me to be part of the company that was going to try to restore Proctor. I gave you $50. Back in 1980, it was a lot of money for me, but I was on this committee that did this. And so the next year, when they hired a guy named Dennis Madden to run Proctor's, he knew me through stuff I was doing at the high school, and he said, would you guys want to do a show on the Proctor stage? And we said, yeah! He's a summer theater. So the first summer we did Godspell, which we had done at the high school and which SLOC had done. So SLOC did it in 77, we did it at the high school in 78, and then we did it at Proctor's in 79. I know the show really well. Godspell's a fun show. I would love to do Godspell.
Did you help choose Godspell?
Oh yeah, Bron and I picked it. We just said we're going to do Godspell. We knew the show, so it didn't require a lot of prep work on our part as directors. We had just done it twice.
Yeah.
We knew Godspell. So we did this Godspell, and it was a relative success, and that was the first live show on the Proctor stage since they went into the movie house days. We were the beginning of the change.
Wow.
And then Dennis Madden said to us, you want to do another show next year? We said, sure, what do you want to do? And we looked at each other, we'd been talking about this for a while, and we said, we want to do Hair. He said, okay. So we did Hair on the Proctor stage. Then, how many years ago? 7 years ago, we did Hair here at SLOC. Michael Gassendorfer, you may know, he does Boston Spa Theater. Michael's directing it. He asked me if I'd come on as dramaturge, and his reason was, you're the only person I know who lived through the 60s. And you directed the show, so you could bring something to the table. And the first rehearsal, I did the history of the 60s in 10 minutes. I gave the cast, and they knew nothing about the 60s. Well, you guys don't know about the 60s. What do you know about the 60s?
Yeah.
Nothing. You weren't there. I mean, you see maybe a movie or something set there, you know. So I gave them, well, what I went through was all the things. Ratto and Regney, they had this, they were counterculture people. They were the hippie freaks that we talk about now. They were out of San Francisco. They were both a little crazy. And they wanted to write a show which celebrated all the things they believed in and tore down all the people who didn't like that. So I gave the cast this history of the civil rights movement and what happened in Selma, Alabama, and George Wallace, and Martin Luther King, and John Kennedy, and Lyndon Johnson, and the Vietnam War, and all this stuff, and Woodstock. All this stuff was happening in the 60s. Well, Woodstock was actually after Hair, but I said to the cast, if you don't understand what was going on in America in the 60s, you can't understand why these guys wrote this show.
Yeah, you can't like replicate it.
You know, like I was an English teacher, and I had a big banner in my classroom that said, every work of art reflects the time in which it was created. I had that banner in my classroom, which is why I always get upset when people say, well, you can't teach this book because it portrays people in a certain way. Well, in 1850, that's how the world looked.
Yeah.
As long as you go in saying, we understand this is dated and this is not real now, but it was that art reflects the era. So doing here was just such a fun, it was just so much fun. I love being a dramaturg because there's no pressure. You just have to know stuff. I know stuff.
A dramaturg, is that like a person who like educates the cast on the show?
Part of it, yeah. It's someone who is considered an expert in the material or in the theater arts. You can come in and help. They have a variety of different roles. The times I've done it, both with Guys and Dolls and with Hair for SLOC, it was because I was knowledgeable in the period and the stuff. I mean, Guys and Dolls is based on Damon Runyon's short stories, which I had taught, so I knew some of that. And the director of that, Sev, had got me involved, and he. Some directors don't want to hear what you have to say. They already know what the answer is.
Yeah, those aren't good directors.
Well, sometimes they're brilliant and they're good, but they're difficult. They can be really good, but they can be difficult. But Seb would ask me, what do you think of this? And he would listen. And so I really enjoyed working with him. And then Michael, when Michael brought me in to do Hair, he wanted me there because I knew stuff.
Yeah.
And he didn't. So he would say to me, how did you guys do this scene? How did you do, when they did, and because, you know, I mean, it's funny that Melissa mentioned Full Monty. I don't know whether Todd either going to go there, but Hair, of course, has nudity. And people have asked me, how did you get 20 people to get naked on stage? And I said, well, they made the choice. At the first rehearsal, we said, the nudity is completely up to you. You can take off as much or as little as you're comfortable taking off. We don't care. We had one young person in the cast, she was 17. We made it clear to her she could not be on stage during the nude scene. And so we worked it out that she was in the big protest march right before the nude scene, and then she exited with the trash can that was burning, all the draft cards. She exited and she was off stage when we did the nude scene. Now, as in the Full Monty, no one in the audience really sees anything in these nude scenes. I mean, but the point in Hair of the nude scene is all of these hippies are rejecting America's values, except the one guy who isn't. He's being drafted, he's gonna go. And all the rest are burning the draft cards, and he's accepted his draft. And so they're throwing off their clothes as a symbol, and he's not. And by the time we got to opening night, every cast member was naked but one. We didn't require anyone, because I can't imagine saying you have to get naked on stage. Come on.
Yeah, yeah.
They had to make their own choices, but they did. And then it became peer pressure among them. You know, they all wanted, we want to be part of the tribe. And so it was really kind of amazing. In fact, one of the women in the cast, this will really get cut out, but it's a good story. She later ran for school board. And she had a fundraiser. She had a fundraiser at 151. At the Great Flats, right next to 151. I was at the fundraiser and I was talking to a person from SLOC, or from Proctor's. And this woman who was running for school board came over to Barbara and I, and she said, "How you guys doing?" And Barbara says to her, "How do you know Tom?" And she looked and goes, "He's seen me naked." That was the introduction, which was just hilarious. So there you go. Memory, the theater memory, there's a great theater memory though. He's seen me naked with her wine.
Yeah.
That's how she would be. Okay, sorry, I'm rambling, and I told the lady when they asked me to do this, I could talk for 3 hours, so I won't. But I just have stories.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
great. That's great.
Yeah, it's good to have
I
stories.
hope well, that's what I say. It's when I stop having stories, it's time to put me in the coffin because that's what I have. I have stories. So what else do we have here for me?
Okay. Oh, I think it's your turn. Or is it? No, it's my turn. I'm gonna grab this sheet. How has SLOC changed over the years? What's the same and what has changed or grown?
Okay.
Can I move my chair just a bit? Because my
Of
neck
course.
is starting to cramp.
Yeah. Move whatever you need to do.
I'm just gonna face this way more.
Well, the geography of SLOC has changed. When I got started, SLOC did its shows at Niskayuna High School. And then I mentioned in 1972, when I went to my first show, that was the first show at the State Street Opera House. Jacques Brel opened that theater. So the first show I saw at SLOC was when they were transitioning out of finding spaces and having a real space. And when they did that, they still did, for the first couple of years, we still did 2 shows at Niskayuna High School because Carnival was at Niskayuna High School. We didn't have, and then the Proctor thing started happening after that. So we had this rotation of theater. So geography has changed with SLOC. And the people obviously have changed. Like I've been around for 50 years, but not many people involved with SLOC today have been around since the 70s. There are a handful of us. But the passion, the people that are involved with SLOC has not changed. And that's what I find fascinating. I mean, I was very, very active from 73 to 83. And then in 83, the year I got married, and that was the time Melissa was getting really involved. It's kind of funny how our stories dovetail. And I said to my friend Ron Kidd, we were co-directing all the shows together, and I said to him, "Ron, I'm taking next year off. I cannot make a marriage work and spend 50 hours a week with you in a theater. It's not gonna work." And he said, "Okay, if you're gonna do that, then I'm gonna take a year off, I'm gonna take a sabbatical, I'm gonna go to New York to see if I can make it as an actor, because I don't wanna be 65 years old and say, what if?"
Yeah.
So I got married, he went to New York, we both left the theater at the high school and SLOC. And for a couple of years, they had people coming in and out of the high school and they were not very good. Then they finally found Bill Ziskin, who became a legend, directing at the high school. But anyway, Ron went to New York and he made it as an actor.
Oh my goodness.
Now, you don't know his name. You might recognize his face in a few print ads he did, but he made a living as an actor for 35 years in New York.
Wow.
And his biggest show was Will Rogers Follies. Through a series of crazy circumstances, he ended up getting to know Tommy Tune. And so Tommy Tune he directed and he wrote it, and he played Will Rogers in the original. And then it became David Carradine, and then it became Matt Davis. And I got to meet them because Ron was involved with the show. And then it went on tour, and for 3.5 years, Ron Kidd toured America in the Will Rogers Follies, playing Clem and playing Wiley Post, the 2 roles. So that's Ron. So Ron took our 10 years together and turned it into a theater career, which I think is really cool.
Yeah.
He retired, now he's in Somerset, Kentucky, in the house his grandmother left him when she died. And he's living in Somerset, Kentucky. And he's doing a little community theater, but not a lot. But so that was the 80s. And then the kids were born. And so from 80 to 95, I wasn't really active. And then I got involved in local politics. And then when they were starting to get this building, some of the people on the board reached out to me and said, "You want to get involved again?" And I said, "Okay, maybe." Because I kept coming to shows. Mm-hmm. In fact, my whole thing with Melissa, we saw so many shows with Melissa in them that there was a time, I don't know, 18 years ago, Proctor's did a photo shoot for their season brochure. And the whole point was they wanted to have an audience applauding. Yeah. And so they had like 30 of us, and they made it a close-up. It looked like we were a full theater. There were 30 of us all close, and we're doing the thing. Well, Melissa was there, and I brought my daughter, who at the time was 15, 14, whatever she was. She came out of that saying she knew that she didn't want to be with her life with a model, because it was a lot of sitting around doing nothing. It was like 4 hours for a 2-minute photo shoot. But when we walked in and she saw Melissa in the audience, she turned and said, "Dad, that's our Melissa." Because she had seen her in so many productions, she felt that she knew her. Aww. When I told Melissa that story years ago, she just melted because our Melissa. But that's kind of a good story, yeah. So then I got involved again. So the company had me back. They asked me to run for the board. I ran for the board. I became company president. And so here we are all these years later. And in fact, you mentioned one of the things that I'm kind of proud of in that little hallway out is vestibule. There are 3 plaques on 3 walls, and my name's on all 3 of them.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
I'm on the president wall, I'm on the donor wall, and I'm on the film and save wall. So it's my claim to fame that I'm on all 3 walls. I don't think anybody else is on all 3. So that's how long I've been. That just proves that's longevity.
Yeah.
Hang in for a long, long time, you get your name on the wall.
Oh wait, it's my turn. What has your involvement been like over the years? Have you been involved in like production teams? Like
okay, yeah. I directed, as I told you. I co-directed. I never directed individually here, but Ron and I co-directed Apple Tree, and we worked together with Godspell. And then I was on stage, and then I produced a couple. Oh God, I hit a couple. 10 years ago, we did the Tom Breitenbach show, Hieronymus Bosch. We did it was a SLOC production in cooperation with Proctor Theater. It was an original musical on the Proctor stage, and I was one of the 3 producers for that show because it was during the summer and we weren't doing stuff here, and it was just, producing is hard. I applaud these 2 because being a producer that was my least favorite of all the things I've done in theater. Dramaturge is my favorite, and director is second favorite. Acting, it was okay. I mean, I've always been comfortable on stage. I was in high school, I did a couple shows. I didn't do anything in college. And then I got here and did a couple shows. But I like being behind the scenes, making it happen. Mm-hmm. That's why directing was so much fun.
Yeah.
And plus, when you have a vision and you're putting it together and you're seeing it happen, and even though you're never sure it's any good till you have an audience that tells you, and we had because Ron and I were crazy, we wrote 3 shows. And we wrote 3 musicals. But we didn't.
With music? Like you guys wrote
we didn't write original music. We cheated and we stole music. And today we could never get away with it. But back in the 70s, no one was paying attention to a high school in Schenectady. So I used the Beatles and Bob Dylan and Paul Simon and James Taylor. I just picked songs that I liked, and we would be writing the show. And the one show was based on Alice in Wonderland. It was called Alice. And one of the shows was called Nobody, based on Emily Dickinson poem. Nobody, What Would I Do Without You, was the name of the show. And the poem that Emily Dickinson wrote, and it's about alienation, she said, "I'm nobody. Who are you? Are you nobody too? Hush, there's a pair of us. They'll silence us, you know." And so we took that and turned it into this show about young people needing other young people, helping and cooperating. And becoming family instead of being individually separate. That's why these cell phones are so horrible. They force us into our own world instead of our communicating world.
That's a really good concept for a musical.
It was wonderful. We loved it. And we had such a success with it that when we wrote Alice, we used the same theme. Even though we took Alice in Wonderland through the looking glass and took all the scenes we liked and turned it into and then like there was a scene when we had the Mad Hatter was singing Dreamweaver as he was leading Alice along. And we had Alice, when she first went through the rabbit hole, Paul Simon's song Cloudy, which you may not know is not one of his more popular ones, but it's Cloudy, the sky is gray and white and cloudy. Sometimes I think it's raining down on me. That we just get this feeling that everything's on us, that alienation thing. And then the third show we wrote on alienation was called Overdue Notice. And we had the title, one day, we would write these shows in my living room on McClellan Street here in Schenectady. Ron would show up at noon and we'd work till 5 o'clock every day. We wrote for 5 hours every day. And he showed up one day with a stack of mail and he put it on I said, what are you bringing your mail here for? Well, I haven't looked at my mail in weeks. I probably have some bills in here to pay. Oh, going through. He had bills that were stamped on the overdue. He had not opened them. And one literally had stamped on it, overdue notice number 3. And I said, that's the name of our show. Because we have to pay back people. And if we ignore people, we're overdue. We need an overdue notice here. So we used that as our theme for that show. And we opened it with Wake Up Everybody, the Harold Melvin Blue Note song.
Yeah.
Google it. It's a wonderful song. Wake Up Everybody. It's a wonderful song. It was a relative hit back in the 70s, but it's lost because it wasn't a great hit. It's a great song, though. Anyway, so what were they going? Oh,
Production staff.
Production staff. So creating. Now that's something, if I could find someone crazy enough to write a show with me, I would probably try to do it again. I desperately want to take Bob Dylan's Tangled Up in Blue and turn it into a stage production. That story of Tangled Up in Blue is just unbelievable. And I'm going to go see Girl from the North Country at Proctor's in a couple months. And I'm going to see Bob Dylan himself in a couple weeks. Because he's coming. And I've been a fan of Bob Dylan since 1961.
Right, yeah.
Hmm?
What's that one place where a lot of concerts come here? SPAC, yeah.
Oh.
SPAC. Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah.
SPAC? Or are you...
No, Dylan's coming to Proctor's.
Oh my goodness.
He's coming to Proctor's
Oh my god.
on October 30th, day before Halloween. And I have to get tickets, even though I've seen him a dozen times. Like I've loved the guy since.
Just want to see him again.
Yeah.
Well, I convinced myself because 2 reasons. One, it's Bob Dylan.
Yeah.
He's been my favorite for 50 years, 60 years. And how many singer-songwriters win the Nobel Prize for Literature? He's a Nobel Prize winner.
Right.
And in his proclamation, they said, Bob Dylan, because of his contribution to the great American songbook. That's what it says on his proclamation. How do you not go to see Bob Dylan? And plus, he's 80. How long is he going to tour? He's been touring since 1966 without a break. He called it the never-ending tour. He takes like a week off and then he goes back on the road. Different bands all the time. And you never know what he's going to do. I mean, I've seen him, as I say, about probably 10 or 12 times in my life. But I haven't seen him since 1980 when he played the Palace Theater in Albany. I haven't seen him since then because he's only played big arenas and he didn't come to the Capital District. And because I've seen him a dozen times, I wasn't going to New York or, I'd seen him a dozen times. But this, he's at Proctor's here and Bob Dylan. And so I'm going to see him again. And then Girl from the North Country, the musical that's based on his music, where somebody legally took Bob Dylan's songs and wrote a book around his songs, unlike what I was doing. And I'm so looking forward to Girl from the North. I never saw it in New York. It came out right. It hit New York just before COVID, and about the time that my wife died, and so I just never got to see the show in New York. So when I saw it on Proctor's schedule, I was so excited. I'm just looking forward to it.
You guys have like time for one more before you have to go back in.
Okay.
So I definitely want that last one, I think.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead, Ray.
Oh wait, it's mine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh wait, no, it's mine. Sorry.
It is yours.
Do you have any words of wisdom or advice for youth performances?
I'm sure you've heard this from everybody you've asked that question to, but the first piece of advice is gotta have fun.
Yeah.
If this isn't fun, don't do it. It's like I said, I taught at Union for a dozen years. I taught prospective English teachers. And I always said to them the first day of the class, I'd say, look, the day you wake up and dread going into school, quit. You can't be good at this if you don't have fun doing it. You have to like teaching, you have to like theater, you have to like acting, you have to like directing. You've got to love doing this, you've got to want to do this. It doesn't have to be the only thing you want to do, but you have to really care about it. So that's one piece of advice. The other is, when you audition, and you're auditioning for part A, and you're offered part F, and you say, no, I don't want it. Never say no. In theater, in the arts in general, never say no. Take every opportunity. You don't know who you're going to meet. You don't know what you're going to learn. You don't know what's going to come out of that involvement. Who's going to see you and say, River, I want you in my next. You just don't know. You really never say no to a chance to get on a stage or to work on a show, even at backstage. Getting involved matters. And I mean, prima donnas say no, and famous, successful can say no. But you can't say, you just don't say no. Now, granted, if you're not a great dancer and they offer you the chorus, well, you can say no to that because that's not in your skill set. For goodness sake, never say no to a thing in theater.
Yeah.
And be kind to everyone you work with. I can't say that enough. Not just in theater, but in life in general. But in theater, everybody up there is struggling. Everybody's having the same doubts you're having. We're all insecure. Everybody that gets on a stage thinks they're crap. They all think it. And they're trying to get past it. Be nice. Boost them up. Give them a pat on the back. Tell them they were wonderful. Because that's how we build humanity, and that's how we make great theater. By being involved with each other. So that's my advice to everyone involved with Tarzan and every other show we do here at SLOC.
Thank you so
You guys were
Thank
wonderful,
you.
by the way. I mean, I talked way
Thank
too
you.
much. My God, I talked. But I told these two when they invited
You
me,
did.
I said I could go for 3 hours.
But
So.
we said we had to have Tom. It was a non-negotiable. Non-negotiable.
I
And
learned
you're the
so
best at
much. Yeah,
boosting
me too.
people up.
Well,
That's
good.
great advice.
Yes, it was great advice. I'm gonna like every single show I do and everything. I'm just gonna like think about that.
Apply,
I'm gonna be like,
that
yes.
mindset.
Yes.
Say yes.
Say yes.
Yes, and
Yes, and
improv. If
Yeah.
anybody.
Yes, I love that.
There you